On Superstars this time, 5 crooning heartthrobs who don't have to try too hard. Over the course of his career, Tom Jones has collected enough women's underwear to launch his own line of lingerie. At the height of his career in the 60s and 70s, his stage performances were supposedly so hot and raunchy that his female fans would throw their knickers on stage. During his celebrated shows at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, some would even hurl their hotel keys. The temptation may well have been a little too much for the son of a Welsh coal miner who left school at the age of 16 in 1957 to become a vacuum cleaner salesman and marry the mother of his child, Linda Trenchard. Over the years, his well-publicised infidelities have included affairs with the former Miss World and model Catherine Berkery, who claimed to have had his son. Throughout it all, however, he has remained married to Linda, who rarely goes out in public. Now in his 60s, he's still getting out on the road.
You know, I love to sing. The best part of my day is when I'm on stage at night. You know, that's the most exciting part of my day because you can get rid of a lot of emotion.
And although the knickers might be a little larger these days, he's still treating audiences to the same raw and raucous singing style that made him famous.
Don't turn on the lights, 'cause I don't want to see. Mama told me not to come.
Yeah, well, I've always, you know, I've stuck to my guns. I've always sung the way I wanted to. And I've worked with a lot of different producers to get different sounds, but never changed my vocal style. And thank God it's still being appreciated.
Early on in his career, sticking to his guns meant ignoring the advice of one of his idols.
Frank Sinatra once told me, he said, you give too much, you're going to lose your voice. I said, it's the only way I know how to sing.
Another one of his early mentors was Elvis Presley. Tom met the King when they were both playing in Vegas in the 60s and remained friends until Elvis's death in 1977. Since then, Tom's popularity has endured plenty of ebb and flow. After a quiet patch in the late 70s and early 80s, his son Mark became his manager.
You don't have to be.
And in 1987, he bounced back into the charts with a cover of the Prince hit Kiss, which introduced him to a new generation and breathed fresh life into his career. In 1999, he capitalized on his retro cool by pairing up with a host of younger chart-topping artists to cover a range of hits on his blockbuster album Reload. 4 years later, he popped up again with Reloaded.
It's basically the greatest hits album. So we've taken the most successful singles that I've had, and then I've had success with some CDs that we've put out in Europe that were never released in America. So we added some of those songs as well.
The album included reworked versions of monster hits like It's Not Unusual, What's New Pussycat and Kiss. Tom's determination to keep moving forward and collaborating with artists from different genres has seen him working with the likes of Wyclef Jean, the Stereophonics and dance outfit Chicane. The hits just keep on coming, and so do the awards. In 2002, he was honoured to be singled out by Q magazine.
Well, it means that I've been appreciated by the music business, but especially Q magazine, because it's all about music. And I think they cut the wheat from the chaff, you know, because I read articles in there, and they say a lot of stuff that I would say about some people. I think they really they understand what quality is, and what when you're different, you know, when you're doing something that is not ordinary. So that's why this award means a lot to me.
The following year, he got a Brit for his outstanding contribution to music.
But after being around for a long time, it's nice to know that the industry appreciates what I've done.
Someone else who appreciates what he does, although she may not remember just how long he's been doing it, is Her Royal Highness Queen Elizabeth.
It was great. The Queen is lovely. You know, she's just lovely. So when she asked me how long but I've been in the business now, you know, because she knew it was a long time, since the 60s. And I told her 41 years successfully.
Yeah.
So she thought it was wonderful, and she was very pleased to give me that.
Not the keys to her private chamber, but a knighthood in honour of the hip-swivelling sex bomb's 40 years in the music industry.
You're a falling star.
The velvety vocal cords of Vancouver's Michael Buble have earned him comparisons with great crooners like Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett. He was introduced to the music of the 40s and 50s by his Italian grandfather, and he recently joked that his decision to go on the big band route was based on his belief that it would get him laid. After achieving his goal and releasing 2 hit albums along the way, he was feeling pretty relaxed and confident on the eve of his 3rd album, Call Me Irresponsible.
I didn't come in with the same kind of desperation that I might have had on the 1st or 2nd record, you know. I didn't come in thinking, oh God, please, I hope this does well, because, you know, I have nothing else and I've worked so hard at this. And I've come to a point now where I'm really just kind of allowing myself to enjoy, you know, really enjoy, like just to take pleasure out of, you know, everything I do, whether it's singing on stage, to sitting here in an interview with you, or even just talking to animals. Yeah, this record basically was kind of like my statement or my remark on the state of love and the fact that love is the greatest thing in the world or the worst thing in the world. And I can only explain it to say that, you know, for those of us who have been in love, lucky enough, you know, there's no feeling as good. But for those of us who have been in love with someone who isn't in love with us, there's nothing worse.
And when it comes to love, Michael has seen it from all sides. The pain of his 2005 split from his fiancée Debbie Timmis inspired him to write the hit song Lost. However, just a few months later, he found his way again, after catching sight of British actress Emily Blunt backstage at an awards event. The incurable romantic hasn't stopped gushing about her since, and occasionally it's got him into a spot of bother.
You know, I'd done an interview with Hello magazine, and in it, they'd asked me if I was going to marry Emily Blunt. And of course, what was I going to say? I said, oh yeah, I'm going to marry her and I love her and all this stuff. And it's true. But I was making a joke, and they said to me, so have you asked her? And I said, well, have I? And you know what I mean? I said, oh, maybe I asked her through the magazine. And of course, just me being dry. And I realize now that I can't even joke about stuff because they've used it to sell their magazine. They've taken it completely out of context, and now I see it's at newspapers at home and throughout the States. I see that I've been engaged to Emily without ever asking her. And I, you know, the big kind of question I had was, do you think that I would ask her to marry me through Hello magazine? I mean, would I do something like that? Would she allow that to happen? No, it's just completely ridiculous.
Luckily for Michael, the star of Devil Wears Prada and the Jane Austen Book Club appears pretty tolerant towards his fondness for goofing off. The couple regularly make a cute red carpet double act.
Well, I still had problems deciding between a couple of... But what am I wearing, kid?
Hervé Lurgier,
Hervé Lurgier, vintage Hervé
Jimmy
Lurgier.
Choo.
Jimmy Choo shoes.
And Lorraine Schwartz.
And Rodo purse.
Bling bling and purse, yeah.
He's also my purse.
I'm her purse. I'm wearing Hugo Boss, and I was. Everyone's all. Well, they're all congratulating her on her 2 nominations, and no one seems to realize that I was nominated as well.
Tell them for what?
Shiniest shoes.
Yeah. They're
It's
so
a.
shiny.
It's a.
I didn't even see that on the press release.
No, because
Top secret.
I'm kind of like a gold. Not a lot of big names showed up.
Who
so
was
they
your
were,
biggest competition on this front?
Clooney. He's
Yeah.
always my biggest
He's so
competition.
shiny. He's
or
so
Clue,
shiny.
or Clue, as we like to call him.
Clue.
Because we're like that.
Having made a name for himself by wearing leopard print drainpipes and belting out raunchy pop tunes, Scottish rocker Rod Stewart recently muscled in on Michael Buble's territory. Beginning in the year 2001, his American songbook series focused on pop standards from the 30s and 40s, written by greats such as Irving Berlin, Cole Porter and the Gershwins. To the surprise of his critics, the 4-album series delivered the kind of chart-topping success he hadn't seen in 30 years. No one was more shocked than Rod.
I'm always surprised, always surprised. Yeah, it was, because that was, that was one hell of a risk that we took there. Just a dyed-in-the-wool rock singer, deciding to do classics, crooning songs, but it paid off. Lucky boy.
Having milked the American songbook for all it was worth, producer Clive Davis persuaded him to dive back into the rock pool.
He said, let's do a rock album, try basically do all songs from the 70s. I thought it was the craziest idea I've ever heard of, but, he was right. He's a genius, the man. Well, we tried to make it all from the 70s, I think there's only 2 songs that are not written or released in the 70s, so that was the criteria. Most of these songs I've always wanted to sing, and the others, about 2 or 3 that were given to me by J Records, and I said, OK, that's fine, let's have a go at them. But they're just good lyrics, good melodies, wonderful to sing.
It proved to be a winning combination. Still the same, great rock classics of our time went straight to the top of the Billboard charts in its first week of release, and Rod couldn't resist the urge to gloat.
I look at all the albums of people around my age, like Elton and, the Stones and Paul McCartney and a lot of others. They haven't even cracked the top 10, so I'm over the moon about it.
Born Roderick David Stewart in London in 1945, he came to prominence in the late 60s, singing with the Jeff Beck group and the Faces before striking out on his own in 1969. He's had 62 hit singles, the biggest selling of which was 1978's Do You Think I'm Sexy? He sold over 250 million albums worldwide, but it all could have ended up differently.
Either play football or sing, and I chose singing. I still do play a bit of football. And I wake up every day and I go, Jesus, this is great. I get to go down to Abbey Road and sing with a 70-piece orchestra. It's just love of what I do. I'm so lucky I don't have to work in a factory, and I'll probably have to do in the next life, I'll have to work in a factory. Nothing wrong with working in a factory, but I'm just very lucky.
Rod's frequent references to his good fortune may have something to do with the health scare, which threatened to silence his raspy voice forever. After undergoing surgery for thyroid cancer in 2000, he had to learn to sing again, and just 2 years later, he was celebrating his emergence from a 20-year career slump with a top 10 album on the US charts. The year after that, he was hitting the red carpet at the premiere of a musical based on his songs. Tonight's the Night, written by Ben Elton, showcased songs like Hot Legs, which was a hit for Rod in 1978. He was delighted with the tribute and looking forward to the after-party.
I'm 58 years of age. I'm not, 22 anymore. I mean, I'd still like to party, and not quite so much as I did. I like a good booze up,
Along with his well-earned reputation as a hellraiser, Rod the Mod is also known for his penchant for leggy blondes. Over the course of his 45-year career, he's been romantically linked to a string of models and actresses, including Britt Ekland, Kelly Emberg and Alana Hamilton. In 1990, he married model Rachel Hunter, who was 24 years his junior, and allegedly made the rather rash claim that he would rather have his penis cut off than cheat on her. They had 2 children together before separating in 1999 and finally divorcing in 2006. By then, he'd found an updated model in Rachel Hunter lookalike Penny Lancaster. At 6'1", she towered over the compact Celtic United fan. Now in his 60s, he may have a little trouble keeping up with Penny, who is half his age. But clearly everything was still in working order when they welcomed Rod's 7th child, Alistair, in November 2005. After years of speculation, the couple finally tied the knot aboard a yacht in Italy in June 2007. Artists are known for feeding off their emotional turmoil and using their personal peaks and troughs as inspiration for their work. Perhaps then it's hardly surprising that George Michael is still pumping out the hit songs more than 25 years after his first assault on the music scene as the hairy half of British pop duo Wham. Over the past 2 decades, the London-born singer-songwriter has collected more than enough heartache, tragedy and scandal to fill a few more albums yet. As a young artist, he rocketed out of the blocks alongside his best friend Andrew Ridgeley, before finding Grammy-winning and chart-topping success on his own. However, at the pinnacle of his career in the late 80s, George started to realise that something very important was missing. Huge success and megastar status weren't bringing him happiness, and much to his record company's dismay, he needed to reassess his priorities. On the eve of the release of his 1990 album Listen Without Prejudice, he broke the news to Sony that he wouldn't be undertaking any promotional duties, including appearing in any videos to promote the singles. In 1993, he took on Sony in a legal battle to be released from his stifling contract. While the official story was that George was tired of being a victim of artistic slavery, other sources claim his decision was motivated by his anger at hearing himself referred to as that faggot by Sony president Donnie Lenner. Either way, he lost the case and went into seclusion, until David Geffen's startup label DreamWorks SKG bought out George's old Sony contract, allowing him to start work on his 3rd solo album, Older, which was released to great fanfare and commercial success in 1996. The same year, he started up a relationship with former cheerleader coach Kenny Goss, while still trying to hide his homosexuality from the press. But 2 years later, he was involuntarily outed when he propositioned an undercover policeman in a Los Angeles public toilet. He was arrested for engaging in lewd conduct and pleaded no contest. George has often joked about the episode and regards it as a pivotal moment in his life that finally allowed him to be himself.
Definitely changed my life. I mean, I think very possibly without that moment in pop history, I probably wouldn't be here tonight, because this film might not have been as honest as it is, you know.
He's been flying the rainbow flag ever since and is very open about his relationship with Kenny.
You can see my partner over here.
Congratulations.
You should be envious. He's a very good-looking man.
Part of the coming out process for George was to make a documentary that laid bare many of the things he'd kept hidden as a closeted gay man for 25 years. In the film, he talks emotionally about the pain of losing his first boyfriend Anselmo to AIDS in the early 1990s. The film, called George Michael, A Different Story, includes interviews with Kenny, who speaks about how the pair met at a spa. Despite living so much of his life in the public eye, publicising the film was an ordeal for George.
Well, as you can see, my fingers are tightly clenched. I'm basically sweating with nerves right now, because this is not easy for me. I have a kind of phobia about cameras, which is why I'm not on the television very much. But this is something that I'm doing for my fans, and in order for them to see it, they've got to know it's out there.
Despite this mammoth attempt to deal with his demons, it didn't take long for another monster to rear its head. In February 2006, he was arrested for being in possession of marijuana, and in May, he was spotted slumped over the steering wheel of his Range Rover. It took a member of the public 5 minutes to wake him before he quickly drove off and collided with a bollard. He appeared in court on the charge of driving under the influence of drugs. Later in the year, while on tour, he appeared to light up a joint during an interview on a British news channel. Then, just weeks before he was due to celebrate his commitment to Kenny in a civil ceremony, he was caught by paparazzi snappers emerging from the bushes on Hampstead Heath, after an illicit encounter with pot-bellied jobless van driver Norman Kirtland. Norman sang like a canary to the press, but George remained unrepentant, maintaining that having sex with strangers in public places is just what gay men do. Whether or not Kenny agreed with him was never confirmed. However, their plans to formalise their relationship were immediately put on hold. Mick Jagger will forever be known as the lead singer of legendary rock band The Rolling Stones. But over the decades, he's also taken time out to pursue a solo career. In 2007, at the age of 64, he finally got around to releasing the very best of Mick Jagger. a 17-song collection of his favourite solo efforts. Over the years, he's collaborated with the likes of Bono, John Lennon and Lenny Kravitz. And although he's been making music for almost 50 years, he still gets excited about writing new material.
Well, you know, you're always pleased with what you do, you know, otherwise you wouldn't do it, you know, and so you get, you know, you do get kind of when you've been working on something and then no one's really heard it, then it's kind of fun to play it to other people, and you get excited and you want to know kind of quietly how they think about it, you know. So what do you think? No, you know what I mean? That's what you ask your friends.
And after 40 years of touring, he still can't wait to get back out on the road.
Well, what makes it work for me is being interested in what I'm doing and really keen on touring and being excited about getting out there on stage. And also what makes it work for me is the audience and how they're responding and so on. And so, you know, that's what the energy between the two is what really makes it for me.
The Mega Bigger Bang tour of 2007 cemented the Stones' reputation as the top concert band on the planet. Coming off the back of their 22nd studio album, the massive world tour earned the band $427 million to become the highest-grossing tour of all time. Mick's share of the pot would have added a nice top-up to the estimated £215 million fortune he's amassed through a wide variety of enterprises. As well as setting up his own production company, Jagged Films, Mick has appeared in a number of acting roles. He's also written songs for various film projects, and in 2004 he won rave reviews for co-writing the soundtrack to the 1960s classic Alfie remake, in which Jude Law reprised the role made famous by Michael Caine. Perhaps his success was due to the fact that he could relate to the film's main character.
He is a guy that has a lot of girlfriends, lots of love affairs, but he doesn't have much else going on. And he doesn't have, you know, he drives a car, he's a repetitive job, doesn't really have any interest in anything else. He's not interested in anything, as far as I can work out of the picture, except seducing more women.
These days, Mick Jagger's face may look as though it needs a good iron, but since first swaggering onto the stage at London's Marquee back in 1963, he's developed a reputation as an incurable womanizer with an addiction to having affairs. He has 7 children with 4 different women that he knows about. While he's showing no signs of sinking into respectability on the relationship front, he was induced to go down on bended knee for the Queen in 2003 to receive a knighthood. While many Rolling Stones fans saw his acceptance of the honour as a reversal of his anti-establishment stance, others questioned whether Mick's poor record on the charity and humanitarian front made him a worthy recipient. It was all water off a duck's back for Sir Mick.
It was rather wonderfully formal, and some wonderful outfits. I noticed everyone. What's rather good is like there's everyone represented from all over England and Wales and Scotland and Ireland, and from every walk of life, from you know, historians to beekeepers. This is rather great.
Among those least impressed with Mick's new title was songwriting partner and fellow Rolling Stone Keith Richards, who was quoted as saying he did not want to take to the stage with someone wearing a coronet and sporting the old ermine. But Sir Mick, who's rarely been known to be troubled by self-doubt, put Keith's criticism down to sour grapes.